Should you worry about facing deportation if you get charged with a DUI? This is Christina Williams with Just Criminal Law.
And David Mann, legal storytelling specialist. Okay, so deportation for a DUI. Tell me more about that.
Sure. So if a person is here, say, and they have a green card and they get pulled over and arrested for a DUI, does that trigger deportation? And generally speaking, the answer is no. But there are some exceptions to that. So if the person has a previous DUI and this is a second DUI, then an immigration court can look at that and determine that that second DUI is a crime involving moral turpitude. And so that's kind of a mouthful, but if the crime is deemed to be that where an immigration judge is determining that, morally this person no longer should be in the United States, like with a DUI second, then that could trigger deportation. Or if the DUI involved bodily injury or death to another person. So if somebody gets hurt as a result of the DUI, then that could trigger deportation. But generally speaking, if you get a DUI and it's your first offense DUI, then and you're here legally, that is, you're documented, then you likely will not face deportation.
Okay, so let's look at some situations possibly. So tell us all a little bit more about this moral turpitude. What exactly does that mean?
Sure. So, it's a legal term where a judge looks at the nature of the crime that you're charged against. And there's certain crimes that fall into this. And, an example like a possession ticket, like if you have a little bit of marijuana, that's not going to be something that will trigger deportation. However, if you're, in possession of a large amount of marijuana and you're a drug dealer, then, that may be something that brings you under the scrutiny. If you're charged or should say convicted of a crime that involves a child, this falls in that category. And so a domestic violence charge where, you've seriously injured a spouse or a girlfriend. These are all areas of the law where, an immigration judge could order that you be deported. And so it's if you do something like make the mistake and drink and drive, that's not going to trigger the deportation. However, certain circumstances of that will cause that scrutiny to fall upon you and could trigger deportation.
Okay, so and just like we talked about in another video, if you get stopped for a DUI, and that's all it is, there's no other extenuating circumstances, and you didn't harm anybody, and you are you don't have your documents on you, that could be a real problem too. So you got to make sure to have those documents with you to say that you're here legally, right?
Right. So anytime you come into contact with law enforcement, it's always good to have your documents with you so that you can show you're here legally and you don't get caught up in the system that way. And so, yes, definitely, if you come into contact with law enforcement and you're not supposed to be here, then you risk being detained and having to go through jump through all of the hoops that come along with showing that you are here legally. So always carry your documents, and it does matter what you're accused of. You're not always going to face deportation if you're charged with a crime.
So I know that you don't currently handle immigration cases, but you may soon, but you definitely handle DUI cases. So if someone has something like that they need to have handled, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. We'll include a link in the description where they can call, text, or chat with a member of my team anytime, day or night. Here at Just Criminal Law, we know you only get one shot at justice, so make yours count.